This channel is about exploring the dangers of exploring consciousness and of psychedelic substances in particular. And it's important to understand where these dangers lie. Number one, they lie in the danger of criminalizing exploring consciousness in the partnership of substances that have occurred for thousands of years across hundreds of diverse and different cultures. When you criminalize consciousness exploration and the partnering with substances, because substances are a partnership, they are an acknowledgement that we are in relationship with the earth, and every substance comes from the earth, and that every relationship between matter, between a human being and a different environment and a different substance, creates a different state. When you go to the circus, it creates a state of curiosity, of wonder, of joy, and of excitement. When you go to a rave or a party, it creates a state of ambient connectedness or of overwhelm. It creates a state. Every relationship between a human being and its environment and our environment is a relationship with nature. It is all nature. We are a part of nature. And when the culture starts regulating and says this part of nature is allowed and this part of nature is not allowed, you have divided. You've made something good, something bad. But the most dangerous form of censorship is the censorship that blocks information. Certain amphetamines, etc., show signs of creating incredible toxicity within the body, etc. That information needs to be known. Certain connections with lead, certain connections with cyanide and various poisons create toxicity. That must be known and studied by science. Every substance must be, in a healthy and free society, able to be studied scientifically. And many of our current journeying substances, including substances that are thousands of years old, are not freely studied within our country. That is a danger, because it means we don't know. And whenever you put a blindfold on, it's not as safe as when we say, to the best of our knowledge that is growing every single year, this is what we know. And you, in your freedom, must be able to make an informed and intelligent decision based on data, based on risk factors for this kind of disease, risk factors for this type of body or personality type, risk factors for someone who's highly sensitive, risk factors for people who are traumatized. That this is a risky substance like alcohol. You should not drive over this amount. We need to know as much as possible, and our government is creating risk by censoring scientific data gathering by free individuals. So that is a source of danger. Number two, when we as a culture say we don't want to know, this is so bad, whatever it is, we don't want to know. It's just bad. This should not exist as a blind statement. That is also dangerous. When we say, without gathering data, this is real, this is not real. One of the most interesting things is that many scientists studying psychedelics have never taken one. Many anthropologists and historians, many archaeologists have not taken any of the substances around which the cultures they're studying have evolved in partnership. This is also, it creates a blind spot. Blind spots hurt people. Imagine driving around on the freeway and saying that this type of person has to drive blindfold. Would accident rates go up? Of course they would. So there's danger in blindness. And we are in a blind culture when it comes to psychedelics and consciousness exploration. We are in a very myopic, self-blinding culture, scientifically, governmentally, legally, culturally, traditionally. We have a lot of blind spots. This creates danger. That danger is very real. It creates the possibility of all kinds of things happen. When things are underground and illegal, it creates a danger because now things cannot be regulated. Now you don't know what you're getting. Imagine if broccoli was forced to go underground and we had to go through all these elaborate and weird things, and you couldn't grow it out in the sun because, you'd have your whole home seized for growing broccoli or whatever it is. But it had some benefits, some toxins, some benefits, just about every vegetable does. And so then you have to buy, if you happen to be interested in broccoli, you have to buy it underground. You have to buy it from shady sources. When you create illegality, you also create a high risk factor for everyone involved. This shoots prices up. This creates a very real danger of three things. One, the purity of any substance is not able to be verified because no reputable sources will touch it. We can buy medicine that says, when I'm in Thailand and I just had 3 fillings done, I had my teeth cleaned and 3 fillings for $130 US in an hour by a fabulous dentist. Why? Lack of insurance suing. People don't sue each other in Thailand, and so it's literally reducing the cost by 700%. Well, we say it's so important that we have rights, that we be able to sue people if they've maltreated us. But what about the right to have reasonably costing dental care? Is it a right? Is it really serving people to be spending 7 times the amount of money? My local dentist would have cost around $820 for the same dental cleaning and 3 fillings, plus required an appointment, and she's not as pleasant as the very gentle and sensitive male dentist who treated my teeth. So there's a cost, for this stuff. But I was able to verify and look at the amalgam, and it was from 3M. And I know 3M is generally a pretty good American company. They have high standards. I can't buy DMT, 5-MeO DMT, psilocybin, etc., LSD, from 3M. But the question is, would we have a safer world if I could? If the substance was verified in a laboratory, tested for strength and dose quantities, would it be safer? Number one. Would it be cheaper? I think so. I think that putting things underground, so first of all, cost gets driven up because who wants to, for $5, take the risk of being thrown in prison? And yet any of these substances can be produced for $5. So there's a risk factor that's being brought that has nothing to do with you or I, but it's there. And it's important to know where these risks are coming from so that we can move in a direction of reducing them. A lack of science, a lack of prescribed location. Like we say, if you're in a bar, you need a designated driver. And of course, but what about having prescribed locations? What about having clinics where people can be psychologically tested for trauma, for sensitivity, for reactivity, and can legally and safely go to a clinic that has a completely controlled, safe environment with hospital care if necessary? Would our safety go up? I think it would. The cost would go way down. The safety of the chemical would go way up. And more importantly, scientific data could be gathered to see what is the effect. So on a sampling of 100 people who freely choose to do this, whose lives have improved in what way? What are the risks? So it's important to know that there are risks. It's important to know where they come from. There's risks from being self-destructive and overdosing or being careless. There are risks. Some substances like 5-MeO, DMT is significantly more risky than LSD. You can read about people accidentally taking 100 doses of LSD and no harm whatsoever. You can't accidentally take 100 doses of OxyContin or morphine and come out alive. So you have to understand that some illegal substances are much safer in quantity, but that the illegality of it is creating a risk. The illegality is creating secrecy. Secrecy is a risk. When nobody knows what's going on, it's like not knowing, because you got a blindfold on, that this driver is in this state or in that state, and you can't be safe around them because you don't know, because it's not safe to be transparent. When someone says, if you do this, we're going to steal your house, we're going to throw you in a concrete cell, we're going to torture and humiliate you for your own good. This is not sane and it is not safe. So these are where some of the risks are coming in. They're real. And there is a risk even in the most safe environment, even in a clinic, even with legality. Like in Costa Rica or in Portugal, they're taking a much saner approach where they're trying to learn, they're decriminalizing small dose usage. The legalization of marijuana is a classic example where they're actually, they have not been able to basically suppress the people. The government, despite trillions of dollars, has not been able to totally suppress its citizens in their healthy exploration of consciousness and the health and wellness risks and benefits of natural plant substances, which I think are the safest of the substances, natural plant substances, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and these sources are safer. But it's not always that way. I mean, there's also plants are complex, so they may have a chemical in them, but they've got lots of other bits mixed in, and so you're ingesting all of that to get, the pure substance. So in some cases, the pure substance is safer. But what I want to say is there's also a risk in doing nothing. Our planet, our culture is in trouble. We, as a human species, are in trouble. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death. It's one of the leading risk factors. That's an extraordinary amount of pain. Heart issues, grief, depression, a huge issue. Depression, a state of mental emotional dis-ease. Now, there is a risk, and it's very real, to going on any journey. Just leave your house and drive out on the highway, and you are at risk. At any moment, absent-mindedness, 5 seconds of foolishness out on the highway, and you and other people may be dead. That is a risk. But what I want to suggest is the biggest risk is doing nothing at all. That there is a price for staying in one's house one's entire life. There is a price for not reading books that challenge the prevailing consensus of the day. That there is a price for not innovating and developing new technology. And that there is a price for not exploring consciousness. And when we consider, if I look around me, every single thing in this view is a product of human consciousness. The way this hill is graded was graded as a result of an idea. The plants that have replaced the old-growth redwoods of this region are a product of an idea. The house and every material in it was invented in the last 500 years. The video camera, the phone, the plastic chair, the wood composter, the nylon fabric of this hammock, the steel of this chair, it is all a product of human consciousness. Now, human consciousness is a neutral force. We can destroy ourselves with it, and we can create love, intimacy, healthy relationships. We can create heaven on earth with advances in technology and human consciousness, with advances with the science of well-being. Applying science to know what is the least amount of energy to create the most amount of well-being. And it is a probability field. If you read The Tryptamine Palace by James Orrick, you will experience a man who is with a tiny little bit of nature. 5-MeO-DMT, a tiny little bit of nature. Applied in the right environment, with a constitution able to deal with it, with the support of loving friends, an important thing in this journey. The support of loving friends, a new world is given birth, a new identity, a new sense of destiny, a new sense of science, education, growth, and responsibility for this great honor of being a human being at this moment in time. That is given birth to 20 milligrams of a naturally occurring substance on that earth. That is the science of well-being, that 20 milligrams can lead a journey that changes an entire lifetime. That's the upside. The downside is all over the place, from horror, from insanity, and that's where we need science. Because that's the same journey. If we didn't know how to drive a car, if we didn't regulate the safety of vehicles, if we did not understand the nuances of every part of the relationship of combustion of gasoline, if we did not regulate gasoline, if we did not regulate steel, if we did not regulate rubber, if we did not regulate crash tests, then driving out from your driveway tomorrow might be an unsafe journey. But would it still be worth it? Would it be more dangerous to live a small and isolated life in an apartment and never leave? To be afraid of the big world out there? There's a cost to that too. So I want to suggest that the biggest risk of all is doing nothing. Not leaving the house. Not as dangerous, as unhealthy, as unpredictable, as unscientific, and as messy as so many human relationships are. I want to suggest that the danger is greater in having no relationship than having a relationship with another flawed and imperfect and unscientific human being. Because the danger of being born and living without love, without meaning, without connection, is higher than the danger of 1 in 300,000, relationships ending in murder, or 1 in 3 relationships ending in trauma, or 1 in half of all marriages ending in divorce. These are all real risks. But we don't shy away from them. We're smart enough to know it's not healthy to do nothing at all. And consciousness exploration is pivotal to our human evolution. So I've made this series about risk because there are big and unquantifiable risks that can all be reduced. And we all need to do our part to do that, including being kind and loving and supportive to those people who, in our state of culture, go out on a journey and don't come fully back, or get injured, or get traumatized, or feel at the edge of sanity. We can reduce the pain and the risk in these individuals by being kind, by understanding, by seeking to stretch our minds, by reading, by learning, by giving them information, by preventing overdose. There's a risk, and we can do something about it. But it just could be, as we begin the 3rd millennium, as we begin this next millennium, it could be that the risk of staying in the same mind state that has created a world of dissociation, of haves and have-nots, of extraordinary isolation, it could be that the biggest risk of all is not doing something, is not taking advantage of the gifts of nature to explore consciousness in meditation, in ritual, and in substance.